Hello students, this is a new lecture in the series of mechanical properties of fluids. In the previous two lectures we have discussed about Bernoulli's theorem, and in the yesterday's lecture we discussed about venturimeter, which is one of the applications of Bernoulli's theorem. Now in this lecture we are going to study another important application of Bernoulli's theorem, which is speed of efflux. So please write down the heading speed of efflux, and I'll explain you what is efflux and how its speed is calculated using Bernoulli's theorem. So let us write the heading speed of efflux, E-F-F-L-U-X. So let's say there is a container. Let me draw the container here. This is the container, and in this container some liquid is filled whose density is rho. Right? The liquid is filled in this container of density rho. Let's say the height of this container is capital H from the bottom surface. Let's say this is kept somewhere on the surface like this. Now what we do, we create a small hole or the opening on the wall of this container like this. Now suppose a hole or an opening, it is called as orifice. O-R-I-F-I-C-E. This is called as orifice, right? So this is a small opening that is created on the wall of this container. So what will happen? The water will start coming out. So let me draw it here. So the water starts coming out from this with some velocity. So let's say the water is coming out through this hole like this. Let's say the water is filled in this container as of now. Okay? Or let's say the liquid is of density rho again. Okay? We consider the liquid is there of density rho. So a small opening or the hole is created which is called as orifice, and as a result of that the liquid starts coming out with some velocity. And now we want to calculate the velocity of the efflux. The liquid coming out of it is called as efflux, and we are interested in calculating the speed of efflux, that is the speed of the liquid with which it comes out through this orifice. Fine. So now to calculate the velocity of efflux, we will make use of Bernoulli's theorem. So what we will do, we will consider two cross-sectional areas. The one is this cross-sectional area at the surface, and one is this cross-sectional area, and both are exposed to the atmosphere. Okay? So let's say consider one point here, and when the liquid comes out through this orifice, this upper surface of the liquid starts coming down. Let's say it comes down with velocity v1, and let's say the velocity of efflux here is v2. Fine. And let's say the cross-sectional area of the container is A1, and similarly let's say the cross-sectional area of this orifice is A2. Fine. And what will be the pressure at these two cross-sectional areas? Because both are exposed to the atmosphere, so there will be atmospheric pressure P0, and similarly here we have atmospheric pressure P0. Now we can apply Bernoulli's theorem. So by Bernoulli's theorem we know that the sum of pressure energy per unit volume, potential energy per unit volume, kinetic energy per unit volume is constant. And because we are interested in calculating the potential energy per unit volume also, so we will have to consider a reference line from where we will calculate the height of these 2 points. So what we do, let us consider the reference line here. This is our reference line. You can consider it anywhere, even if you take this surface as a reference line, there will be no issue. And let's say the position of this orifice from the upper surface of the water is H. That means Fine. So this is the depth of the orifice or the position of the orifice or the location of the orifice. Fine. And this is our reference line. So this distance is h. So this distance will obviously be capital H minus small h. I hope things are clear till here. Fine. Now we will apply the Bernoulli's theorem for this. So applying Bernoulli's theorem, we have P1 plus rho gh plus half rho v square is half rho v1 square is equal to, let me call it as h1, right? And we will have, it will be equal to P2 plus rho gh2 plus half rho v2 square. Fine. So now let us plug the values. So P1 is equal to P0. Let me write it from here. It is equal to P0 plus rho g h1. And what is the value of h1? Let's say this cross sectional area is A1 and this is A2. This is 0.1 and this is 0.2. So what will be the height of 0.1? It will be equal to small h. Fine. So it will be rho gh plus half rho v1 square is equal to, and what is the value of P2? P2 is P0 plus rho g h2, and what is the value of h2? Because we have taken this as a reference line, so the height will be 0, so the value of h2 will be 0 plus half rho v2 square. Clear? So this term becomes 0 and P0 cancels out and we are left with rho gh plus half rho v1 square is equal to half rho v2 square. Fine. So what we can say, acha, tell me v1 will be greater or v2 will be greater? Think about it. By equation of continuity, A1 V1 will be equal to A2 V2, and because A1 is greater than A2, so V1 will be less than V2. So V2 will be greater. So let us take this term that side. So we will have rho gh is equal to, taking out half rho common, we will have half rho V2 square minus V1 square. I hope this is clear to you. Now this density terms cancel out, and if we send this to here, we will have V2 square minus V1 square is equal to 2gh. This is our equation number 1. Fine. Now we make one very important assumption here. The very important assumption is that this cross-sectional area of orifice is very small as compared to the cross-sectional area of the container. That means A2, let me write it here, that is A2 is very less than A1. Let me see if it is visible. Yes, it is visible. So if we assume if A2 is very less than A1, then what we can say that by equation of continuity, what do we have? We have A1 V1 is equal to A2 V2. So we will have A2 upon A1, it will be equal to V1 upon V2. Since A2 is very less than A1, so A2 upon A1 will tend to 0. So V1 upon V2 will also tend to 0. So we can say V1 tends to 0. That means the velocity with which the upper surface of the water or liquid comes down is negligible, or it tends to 0. So in the light of this assumption, we can say this equation number 1 modifies as V2 square is equal to 2gh. Remember, this is only true if we are assuming that the cross-sectional area of orifice is very small than area of the container. So from here, V2 is equal to root 2 gh. So this is the required expression for speed of efflux. So what we know that if the orifice is located at the height h from the upper surface of the liquid, then the velocity with which it comes out is root 2 gh. I hope this is clear to everyone. Fine. So please copy it down and then we shall proceed further. Suppose if the cross-sectional area of A2 has not been negligible as compared to the area of cross-section of the container, then we cannot make that assumption, and then what we will be doing? We will be taking this equation and then we will use the equation of continuity A1 V1 is equal to A2 V2, and then using this equation and the equation of continuity we will be deriving the velocity of efflux. Fine. But in 99% question we assume that the area of orifice is negligible as compared to the area of container, and so we are using this result in 99% of the questions. Fine. So please copy it down and then we shall proceed further. So now if somebody asks us time taken by the, suppose the upper surface of the liquid is at height capital H only, and now if somebody asks us what is the time taken by the efflux to reach the ground, one question will be this, and another question that can be asked is the range of this efflux. So now I am going to erase this all and we are going to calculate the time taken by the efflux to reach the ground and the range of efflux. Fine. So I am erasing this. So now we are going to calculate time taken by efflux to reach the ground. Fine. So what will be the time taken by the efflux to reach the ground? To calculate the time taken by the efflux to reach the ground, what we will do? We will consider the motion in y direction of the efflux. So the initial velocity of the efflux in y direction will be 0 because it has velocity only in the x direction, and the distance that it has to cover is h minus h, and it will be negative minus of h minus h, and acceleration will be acceleration due to gravity, which is minus g is equal to minus 10 meter per second square, let's say. Okay. So okay, let us calculate it in the terms of g only. We will use this g only. Okay. A is equal to minus g, and we are interested in calculating the time. So we have s u a t. So we can use the second equation of motion, and using second equation of motion we get, using second equation of motion we get, what do we get? Minus of h minus h is equal to ut, and because u is 0, so ut will be gone and we will be remaining with half at square, half a is minus g, and t square. So minus minus will cancel out, this 2 will go here and it will become 2 into h minus h, and g will come down. So from here the value of t comes out to be under root of 2 h minus h upon g. I hope this is clear to everyone. So this is the time taken by the efflux to reach the ground. Again and again I am saying all this is true when the area of cross section of orifice is negligible as compared to the area of the container. Fine. So this is the time taken by the efflux to reach the ground. And now let us calculate the range of efflux. So now I am going to erase this. Please copy it if you haven't copied it. And now we are going to find the range of f flux. So we have range of f flux. So range, to calculate the range of f flux, we consider the x direction motion of the f flux. So and one more thing, remember that this path will be a parabolic path. It has direction, it has velocity in the x direction only, and there is gravity, so the path will be obviously parabolic, right? And we are interested in calculating the range of f flux. So for calculating the range of f flux, what we will do, we will consider the motion in x direction, and there is no acceleration in the x direction, so we can directly use the relation distance is equal to speed into time. So this distance is equal to speed into time, so range will be equal to speed, that means v2, and time, this is the time that we have calculated, and therefore range will be equal to, what is the velocity value? The velocity is under root of 2g small h multiplied by under root of 2 into h minus h upon g. This is the time. So range will be equal to velocity into time. And now if we solve it, we will have r is equal to, this root will become 1 overall, ठीक है? So चलो ऐसे लिखा देते हैं इसे, ठीक है? It will become under root of 2gh multiplied by 2h minus h upon g. This g will cancel out, and r is equal to under root of 4h into h minus small h. So this is how the range of f flux is calculated, and this is the required expression for it. I hope this is clear to everyone. So this is the expression for range of f flux. So you can see that the range of f flux does not depend upon the velocity of f flux or the acceleration due to gravity or anything. Okay? It only depends upon the position of the f flux. That is the location of the f flux, at what depth from the upper surface of the water it is located. So it depends only on the value of small h, and obviously capital H is the height of the container. Fine. So this is the range of f flux. Now suppose if we have to calculate the maximum range, we want to obtain the maximum range of the f flux. So the question that will be framed is, at what position or at what depth from the upper surface of the water should the orifice be located. So we are interested in calculating that position of the orifice for which the range on the ground is maximum. So what do we for that? To calculate the maximum value of the range, what do? We, for maximum value, for maximum range, you must have studied this in your mathematics, how do we calculate the maximum value. For maximum range, what do? We put dr upon dh is equal to 0. This small h is variable, and we are interested at what, for what value of h the value of r will become maximum. So we will put dr upon dh is equal to 0. So from here we have d upon dh of, let me write it like this. This 4 can be taken out and it will become 2, and then h can be written as h half, and then this is written as h minus h into half. Fine. This is equal to 0. Now you can clearly see that this function is a product of two functions. And how do we calculate the differentiation of two functions? We have studied that d by dx of uv, where u and v the other two functions, we calculate it as first function into differentiation of second function plus second function into differentiation of first function. This is how we calculate the differentiation of the product of two functions. This 2 is taken out common and it becomes 0. So now we are left only with these two product of functions, right? So first function into differentiation of second function, that means the differentiation of h minus h to the power half. So the differentiation will be of the form x to the power n. So d by dx of x to the power n is equal to n x to the power n minus 1. So we have n x to the power n minus 1. N minus 1, that means half minus 1 will become minus half. Then plus second function h minus h की power half second function into differentiation of first function. This is the first function of the form x to the power n again. So the differentiation will be half h की power half minus 1, that is minus half, is equal to 0. I hope this is clear to everyone, right? So now it can be further written as, suppose we write it as, this is have you done it correctly? Please let me check. First function into differentiation of second function half, ठीक है, plus second function into differentiation of first function. I hope this is right and clear to everyone. I am sorry, we have done one mistake here. When we were differentiating this second function, so what do we have? N x to the power n minus 1. And because this is not a function, proper function of x, so by chain rule it will be differentiated. And if we differentiate h minus h, the differentiation of capital H will become 0, and then we will have minus sign, and then dh upon dh will become 1. So here minus 1 will be introduced. So this is the mistake that we have done. So please correct it. Fine. So now if we take this term that side, what do we have? We will have under root of h minus h. Now I am writing it in this form. Under root of h minus h, this root h is taken out, and so we will have 2 root h is equal to, this will remain above, okay, in the numerator. So we will have root h upon, this is taken down, and we will have here 2 under root of h minus h. Okay, so I hope this is clear to everyone. And now if we cross multiply, the square root will be removed, and so we will have 2 into h minus h is equal to root h will become h, so we will have 2h. This 2 into cancel out, and we will have h is equal to 2h, and therefore h is equal to h. H by 2. H is equal to capital H by 2. That means if the orifice is located in the middle of the container, that means at half of the height, then the range of the efflux will be maximum. So you need to remember this. This is very important, that if the orifice is located in the middle of the wall of the container, then the range of the efflux will be maximum. I hope this is clear to everyone. So this was all about efflux, and now I am going to tell you one theorem also, which is known as Torricelli's theorem. That is also important. So please first of all copy this, and then we will come to Torricelli's theorem. I hope everyone has noted it down. So what does Torricelli's theorem states? Just now we have seen that if there is an orifice like this, so the velocity with which the liquid inside the container comes out is equal to root 2 gh, where h is the depth at which the orifice is located from the upper surface of the liquid. Fine. So what does Torricelli's theorem states? That if you take any particle, suppose any drop of water at the same height in the horizontal level of the upper surface of liquid, and if you allow this water velocity of the efflux will be equal to the velocity that is gained by this water drop when it reaches here, that is when it covers height h in air. So this is what Torricelli's theorem states. So it states nothing but that the velocity of efflux is root 2 gh in other terms or in a different style. So let me dictate Torricelli's theorem to you. Please write down the heading Torricelli's theorem. The spelling is T-O-R-R-I, Torricelli's theorem. So please write down what does Torricelli's theorem states. Torricelli's theorem states that the velocity of efflux, Torricelli's theorem states that the velocity of efflux of a fluid flowing out of a hole on the wall of a vessel, is equal to the final velocity of a body, falling freely from a height small h, where small h is the depth of the hole, from the free surface of the liquid. So again, please see, I am explaining it once again. If you take one water droplet at the same level, at the same height of the upper surface of the liquid, then and if you allow this water droplet to fall freely at the gravity, then the velocity of the efflux will be equal to the velocity that is gained by this water droplet or particle when it falls to height small h. I hope this is clear to everyone. Fine. So now let us practice some numerical problems based on this concept of efflux. Fine. So please copy it down and now let us discuss some numerical problems.